Do they link to the site on the general website?
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 20th, 2022 meeting of the Litchfield Planning Board. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll start with the roll call of members present. Michael Croto, Chair.
Kate Stevens, Vice Chair.
Kimberly Queenan, Selectman's Rep.
Sam Terrell, member.
Okay. James Buffetti and Ron Stevens are not present this evening. They did tell me that they weren't able to make it. With us this evening is Jay Mankara from NRPC, our circuit rider. Good evening, Jay. And we also have Luke Herron here, as well as our town engineer. And Kim Kleiner, I believe, is in the back somewhere, who's filling in for Joan. She's our town administrator. Good evening. We're going to go kind of out of order this evening, only because there are a couple of other items on the agenda, and we're going to switch this up a little bit. Before I get to that, is there any public input on non-agenda items not on the agenda listed for this evening, that the members of the public wish to comment? Okay, hearing none, I will close input on non-agenda items, and I will go to the first order of business is number 2 this evening, Recreation Commission input on pickleball courts at Sawmill Park off Albuquerque Ave. Is someone from the Rec Commission here? Why don't you come forward, introduce yourself to the board, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Hello, I'm Chris Burns, 4 Center Street, and also a member of the Recreation Commission. And I came today just to discuss the construction of pickleball courts down at Sawmill Brook Park. So this goes back to April. The Pickleball Association came before the Rec Commission, asking us to repair the tennis courts. There are some cracks and uneven playing surface, and it was really beat up once we took a good look at it. So we did look into that a little bit, and it's outside of our budget to do anything down there. So we explored some other options, and what we landed on was using impact fees to build some dedicated courts for pickleball. Right now, the Pickleball Association only has there's 2 tennis courts, but they only have 2 pickleball courts inside one of those tennis courts, and then they use Talent Hall during the winter. So they're pretty limited on where they can go and play in town. And I didn't realize this, but they have 140 members, so they're pretty big, and they take up most of Talent Hall during the winter, during the day and 7 days a week. So they're in there every day. So this is going to be a good project for them. So just to keep you up to date, where we started was exploring the impact fees. The Board of Selectmen approved the use of impact fees for that site at Sawmill Brook Park. We've gone to we've worked with a local surveyor. He put us in touch with a wetlands inspector who came and did a report on that. The surveyor has put together a detailed drawing of the space and how we can utilize it the best, with taking that wetlands into consideration. We've worked with the building inspector here in town to define some issues with the site and parking and ADA compliance and so forth. And we've gone in front of the Conservation Commission, just to keep them up to date on what we're doing, similar to how we're meeting with you tonight. So as I mentioned, we're looking at the Sawmill Brook Park, that section that's just behind the tennis courts, that parking area, looking at going right back in there. Excuse me. We looked at a bunch of different options for that site, and that really works out the best. But just with the parking already there, we're not taking up parking where the soccer fields are. When they have their tournaments, that gets pretty filled up. So it worked out really well there. The wetlands surveyor came in and flagged out the area. He passed his report on to the to the local surveyor that put together our design for the courts. And we landed on an option with six courts, 6 dedicated courts in there. With the ADA compliance, there'd be 2 entries, just perimeter fencing, really pretty minimal as far as disruption to the area back there, no lighting. Nothing that's really gonna affect the look behind the tennis courts back there, other than the new pickleball courts. We're anticipating that the contractor that's gonna be doing the site work and the pad is gonna start really as soon as possible. He wants to get it done before the end of the year. So we're looking at moving right on it, right away. So, like I said, the milestones, we've met with the Conservation Commission, we've been working with the Building Department. We've approved, the Recreation Commission has an approved layout and the funds available for it. And meeting with you tonight just to keep you up to date on what's going on and answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Does the board have any questions?
When you say approved, did you mean Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen approved the use of the funds, the impact fees, and the Recreation Commission approved the layout. We had a few different options on the layout.
Okay.
The 6-court layout gave us the most available space to play in there. There was another option for 4 courts, but we really wanted to maximize the use there, given the size of the pickleball group, gives them as much room to play.
Are you expecting it to be used in the winter? Do the tennis courts get used in the winter?
The tennis courts do not. We take the nets in during the winter. The expectation would be that pickleball kind of manages these courts. We'll keep up with the maintenance on it along with Pickleball Association, but they would kind of manage it during the winter. It can be used during the winter as long as there's not a lot of snow or ice on it. So I guess it'd really be up to them when they want to stop playing, if they even do, depending on how bad the winter is.
Okay.
So it would really be up to them.
Great. I just want to say it's commendable that you said you started this in February.
We started talking with them in April,
Okay,
this
April.
past April.
Yeah, that's,
Yep.
how many months is that? Like 7 or 8 months?
Yeah.
That's probably the fastest I've ever seen the turnaround on any project.
And there was also something in the capital improvement plan, I believe.
There was, but I think we took that out because we got the impact fee approval for it. So
Right.
that's
There were
all
impact
gonna be
fees, that
covered
was
under
it.
the impacts.
Very
Yeah.
good.
It's on the spreadsheet as paid for through impact fees.
Got it.
Yeah, that is really impressive to have that whole project come together that quickly,
Yeah, thank you.
and at no cost to the town, so really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, we're excited about it.
Very nice. Anybody have anything else? No? Okay, well, we thank you very much for coming in, and we wish you luck on the project.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a worthwhile effort, and look
Absolutely.
forward to the end result.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
I'll go down to number 3, Heritage Commission to present an amendment to zoning ordinance 1040. Is anyone from the Heritage Commission here this evening? Kim, I know you have something to talk about
Yeah.
that.
I just sent an email to everybody if they would like to open up their email. I'll also discuss what you're looking at. Let me know if it shows up. Jay, do you mind going to the litchfieldnh.gov website so people can see it on the screen? And if you go to Heritage Commission, so town departments on the top, and Heritage Commission. Sorry about my voice here. And then if you scroll down and over on the left-hand side, you're gonna see a few documents we can link at. Okay, right there. We want the last one is the zoning ordinance 1040. That's the demolition ordinance. When somebody pulls a demolition ordinance, it goes through a process. Right here. We're focusing on section 1040, part B. But before we look at that, can you go go back to that other website, link you were just at, and take the flow chart Take that one. And go scroll down to page 2, please. So this is the process that the town goes through when somebody pulls a demolition ordinance, and we determine if that first selection criteria up there, line 2, is if the structure, I think, is greater than or equal to 500 square feet, and it was built prior to 1960, it'll go to the Heritage Commission for review to decide if it's architecturally, culturally significant. This was approved by the voters, I believe, back in 2017, and I think the Heritage Commission was founded in 2018 after it approved warrant article. So looking at that if statement there about if it's greater than or equal to 500 square feet or built prior to 1960, a problem that was discussed was it should not be a hard-coded year. As time goes forward, we need to have new words with that. The town used this flow chart for buy-in during meetings, the greater than or equal to 500 square feet. They're going to leave that the way it is, but they want to at least look at part 2. So the email that I just sent has the new wording they would like to put in to replace that hard coding of built prior to 1960. So if you look at the email I just sent to you, the Heritage Commission met, and they came up with this wording that they would like to update the zoning ordinance with. I don't know if Jay sees it yet. Sorry if it came to you yet. Yep. And if you just open up the attachment. Uh-oh, do I have a security issue here, or?
Oh, I do.
There you go. See, the top line is what they want to replace that section B with, that's below. So B says, in 1040B, you see how it says that the and condition is the housing was constructed prior to 1960? They want to replace it with the sentence above that I typed, with buildings constructed 60 years or earlier at the time of submission of the demolition permit application. So that's what they're trying to do.
Okay.
Now, if it does become approved, we'll obviously change the flow chart to match.
Now, is this something that you're looking to go to as a zoning amendment?
They would like to, Kim, the zoning ordinance, I know we had the draft warrant articles, but this didn't have to go to budget because there was no monetary
Right.
value with this, right? Can we still put this in? We have 2 zoning ordinances, right? We have one, the planning board, right? And then this would be a potential second one to go in.
Yeah, there's still time to
Okay.
send it to public hearing. If that's the will of the board. We are having public hearings. We can't get it on for the first public hearing in January, I think January 4th or 3rd is our next meeting. We can get it on for the second meeting in January.
Is there a hard cutoff of when they actually print the warrant articles for deliberation? Probably
We're
February?
Kim could probably speak to that, but we will be having second public hearings on zoning amendments, assuming that's the will of the board, on January 17th.
Okay.
So we don't have time to get it on for January 3rd because we can't, meet the notice requirements, but we could get it on January 17th if that was the will of the board. So the board could vote to send it to public hearing on the 17th.
Okay.
Is this enough information to make that motion?
We have the language, so.
Okay.
We have the language. I mean, it would be a matter of just going to public hearing, so.
Right.
So I'll make a motion to move this forward to public hearing for January 17th.
Okay, I have a motion by Kate. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Sam. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of putting this on for public hearing on January 17, 2023, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 4-0-0. Okay, so we'll have public hearing on the 17th.
Thank you. you very much. I'm sure the Heritage Commission's happy about that. Would you like me to put that in and, do how we usually do the Word document? We scratch out the old text and put in the new. Would you like me to do that, or you
I can do it if
you got that? Okay,
if
great.
you'd like.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Switching back to number 1 on the agenda this evening, site plan review for an expansion at Olson's Mobile Home Park for 55 units of residential housing on the existing 40 acres. Zoning Board approval on March 21st, 2022 to allow residential manufactured homes in the Southern Commercial Industrial Service District. Map 1, Lot 32, 13 Charles Bancroft Highway. The owner, Patriot Holdings, LLC. If the aforementioned application is accepted, notice is hereby extended to application approval, consideration, and/or continuations to a date certain as required. Is the applicant present this evening? Would you be so kind? Come sit at the table, introduce yourselves to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Bob Best. I'm an attorney at Sulloway and Hollis in Concord, New Hampshire, and I represent the applicant here. And with me is Chad Brannon from Fieldstone Land Consultants, and he's responsible for all of the design and the technical aspects of what's going on here. And I'm glad to give you an overview of the project and what it's all about, but all you asked for so far was an introduction, so
Okay.
make sure
Yes, that is true, I did. But thank you, and thank you for coming this evening. Why don't you start, maybe give us a little bit of an overview of what it is that you're proposing. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to vote on the application for completeness of the project, of the application itself. And so maybe give us a little bit of an overview, then we'll have some, obviously, we'll have some questions from the board, and then we'll look and see if we have everything that we need for the application. Okay, so I'll let you start.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the chance to be here. This is a pretty exciting project given the history of this parcel and how it's been developed over the years. You may be familiar with it. It's been a part of the community. I think it was originally developed as a mobile home park in either the late 1940s or the beginning of the 1950s with a permit, I think, in the file for, 2 or 3 homes. And it grew and grew and grew, owned by several generations of Olsons, both named Larry, Lawrence Larry Olson. And it got up to about 44 units, which is roughly the configuration that's out there today. Some of the homes have been replaced over the years, obviously. Manufactured housing is an important part of the continuum of housing that's available. It is, when done right, clean, wholesome, safe housing options at a fairly low price point. And so it's available for people who can have equity in where they're living because they own the home and they rent the lot. But Olson's hasn't really lived up to that plan or that reputation over the years, and it's a fairly distressed property. And I think it was in 2019 when Larry Olson passed away, and the property went up for auction, and Patriot Holdings acquired it. When I mean distressed, I can tell you about some of the details. You see some of them in the application. Probably the most eye-opening and stunning one that you see is that the septic system on the property finishes out into an open lagoon on the back of the property. And from a treatment standpoint, you can treat septage that way, but obviously it's not the modern standard and it's not desirable. But decommissioning that system, fixing the roads, fixing the other drainage, fixing lighting, fixing water service, fixing some of the buildings that weren't stable where they were situated, and all of that comes at a great expense for the new owner. But they're willing to do that, and I think it's a real. That's the exciting part about this is that without a new owner coming through to do something special with a really distressed property, this place could have easily closed down. And then you'd have displaced families that had been there for years. And even though the place could use a facelift and could be better, for the people who live there, it's an important housing option for them. So seeing it turn around, seeing it improved, seeing it repaired, seeing new septic systems, new roads on the plans, new lighting, recreational areas for the kids to play, safe places for the kids to play, culverts that are actually installed correctly and functioning properly so the drainage works is a big deal for the property. But a huge chunk of that, and this was the message for the ZBA when they granted the variance, a huge chunk of being able to do those things is being able to develop this area in the back of the lot where it had previously been mostly a disposal area for old mobile homes and trash and rubble and old cars and you name it, it was back there on the back 30 acres. But developing it into new sites and earning a little bit of money that's, the fuel for the engine that's going to pay for all these other repairs that need to get to take place. So the added 55 lots in the back are generally all double wide homes with garages. They're up to modern standards. I think there's a couple of images in the submission package of what the homes look like. You may have seen those when you've gone through the package. Not necessarily the 1970s version of manufactured housing. They're quite a lot better. And these would sell for something in the $200,000 range, so quite a big upgrade for what's gone on in the park in the past.
Do you actually have copies of those submission, the packets that you submitted for application? I didn't see
I don't recall seeing them in here either.
the site.
You could certainly have my copy of it if you'd like it, but
Well, I didn't know if you had extras, but I don't want to take away your copy.
I wasn't going to use it in my presentation other than showing those pictures, so
May I just so I
Absolutely.
can take a look at it? Thanks. I
Those
apologize.
are, I'd have to
We had those.
find
Thank
the-
you.
Those
I
were in
didn't mean to interrupt.
the original. Yeah.
And those were in our original submission
Okay.
in the back, and then we made
I see.
an
Got
updated
it.
submission.
Okay.
So all of these are horizontal to the road, the way that a traditional house might be laid out on its lot, rather than what the front part of Olson's or Litchfield Estates is, where they're kind of end to end, and they're pretty crowded on the front part. Developing that, though, is really intended to provide the resources that are necessary to fix up the whole place. Now, another part of why it's exciting, or why I'm talking about this, I do quite a lot of work with planning boards, and I'm also on a planning board. And so when you get into workforce housing and manufactured housing, we know we've got these statutes that say every town's got to provide a reasonable opportunity for them. When you get a unique project like this that actually kind of checks both boxes, it's both workforce housing and manufactured housing, it's in the right place, it's in a lot that isn't going to be, none of this development will be visible from the road. Whatever abuts the parcels to the back and to the sides, if they didn't notice the septic lagoon and everything else that's gone on there, this is going to be a beautiful improvement for them from what their experience is. So it's an opportunity for the town to have a little bit of additional manufactured housing, a little bit of additional workforce housing, which the statutes require you to have, so you get to check those boxes off in a really, really good project. That should be easy to fill up. That's my introduction to it. I think it's a really nice addition to a park that really needs the help. It will not only provide these new homes, though, it fixes all the infrastructure and roads and recreational areas and all of that. With that introduction, Chad is in charge of the details, and can walk you through exactly what's laid out on the plan and where things are located and answer any questions that you have. And I'd like to turn it over to him unless you have questions of what I've asked, what I've spoken about.
All right. Thank you very much. Does the board have any questions so far?
Not yet.
Okay. So,
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Chad Brannon. I'm a civil engineer with Fieldstone Land Consultants. And as Attorney Best stated, we've been working on this project now for quite a long time. our efforts on this project have been pretty extensive from the beginning in trying to help the current owners really bring this property, up to an appropriate standard. That has consisted of working with local departments as well as with DES on a number of topics. Obviously, there's as Attorney Best stated, there's the existing septic lagoons that were they're essentially unpermitted in the state size. They've been there for a long time. We had to secure a temporary groundwater discharge permit in order to operate those lagoons while we worked collaboratively with the state on securing an approval for an alternative system on site, which is as Attorney Best stated, a more modern design, where we would have a new pump chamber system, and we would essentially utilize the existing infrastructure for the 44 units. So I'm just taking a look at the plan that I have before you tonight. And I did bring additional half sizes of the color version if you'd like me to hand those out. That's fine. We'll test everybody's eyes, but it'd be a nice pretty picture anyways.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So essentially what I'm talking about is, initially, we really had to focus on the existing 44 units within the complex. Those are serviced by an existing road network. You have Darlene Lane that comes in off Charles Bancroft Highway and kind of navigates through the site here. Then you have Robin Court that kind of offshoots to the south. And then you have Bradford Drive and Lori Lane on the north side of the site, or heading north. The existing infrastructure on site has been a challenge for the current owner. They've gone out and they pumped all the septic tanks, or at least all of them that they could find. Clearly, the current infrastructure doesn't meet today's standards from a permitting standpoint. So we had to work collaboratively with the state on really creating a critical path for this project. What I mean by critical path is we have septic lagoons on this, really the southeast portion of the site here along the property line. And the primary goal is to take those offline and was to establish a closure plan for that, which we've since obtained an approval for through DES. We also obtained an approval for the construction of a septic system, a community system located here that will service the 44 units that currently exist. They would essentially utilize the phase one of the subsurface disposal system approval is they would utilize the existing infrastructure, get it to the new pump chamber, and pump it to that new field. We're looking forward to that being online within the next 30 days potentially, as that construction is wrapping up. Significant investment of the current owners, into that. This system that was constructed out in the back is oversized because we are certainly hoping to tie some of the new homes into that as well. The state typically does not break a permitting phase in two components, a conveyance system and a field system. But again, working collaboratively with them on creating a critical path, it was important for this to come online as soon as possible. The second phase, which we are actively working on now, and I think you saw is actually, it was part of the submission set, consists of redoing the entire conveyance system for the 44 units. And what I mean by redoing, it's everything. It's all new septic tanks, all new service lines from the units, because there's some issues out there where the piping isn't on a positive slope, and there's just been ongoing issues. It's the conveyance system to get to the pump chamber, so you have the pipes, the manholes, the cleanouts, etc. And then while we're doing all of that work, or when that's hopefully going to be done, they'll be installing all new water services as well for all of the existing units. because they currently have a lot of leaks, and that's very costly in itself, because the project is serviced by Pennachuck Water, and, you know, what you use, you pay for. So that is going to be a new network. We've worked closely with Pennachuck on a new design that would allow for an expansion, and that's depicted, you know, within the plan set as well. In the end, all of the roads within the existing development would be regraded and paved. And so you're really starting with a project that's been completely overhauled at that point. In order to do that, we have to, you know, secure the 55 unit expansion. It's just the costs are tremendous. But the good news is it works. It can work as long as we're able to, you know, work with the town on securing this. So this layout that we've created in the back is very similar to what we presented conceptually before the zoning board. It's slightly less units, actually. I think we presented around 58 units when we were before the zoning board, if I'm not mistaken.
Sounds right.
We're at 55 now. When you do a complete survey and you locate the wetlands and you have some buffers and you create a plan that meets all of the local regulations, which is really what our goal has been with this project, and working with local staff. We lost a little bit of units, but still have a viable project, and that's important. So we have a network before you now that shows 55 units. All of the lots meet the requirements as outlined under the manufactured housing park section, which I believe is section 505 of the ordinance. And we also comply with section 506 of the ordinance, which has to do with the, I think it's called residential manufactured housing, if I'm not mistaken, that section. And so what's important is we made a commitment when we presented this plan before the zoning board, that we would meet sections 505 and 506. In fact, that was a condition of us securing the variance. So if you go down through those sections, just hitting kind of the high points, we are proposing a project that has all hard surfaces that will be maintained in good condition. Each of the individual lot sizes meets or exceeds the 10,000 square foot minimum, which is currently outlined in your regulations. We have the minimum, we meet the minimum 75-foot lot width standard, and we meet the 30-foot front setback and 20-foot side setbacks on all of the proposed unit lots that we're creating. This site will be ultimately serviced by Pennachuck Water and on-site septic. We are proposing 4 community septic systems with this project. We have the primary one in the back here, which we have already secured the approval on through the state. And then we have 3 other locations. We have a smaller system here, another system in this location here, and then one in the back over here. We have gone through preliminary reviews with the Subsurface Bureau on those designs. We meet all site loading requirements. In fact, the site loading for this project is high. I mean, we can easily satisfy the site loading. We meet all nitrate setback requirements. So now it's just really finalizing the details, and we look forward to working through that. Each lot will provide for at least 2 parking spaces, in most cases 4 if you count the proposed garages. The double wide units that we're depicting on the plans are 52 feet wide by about 27 feet in depth. And we have a 22 by 22 garage shown on most of the lots. There are a couple that we were not able to fit them on, but the majority of them, probably 95% of them at least, do show that. So there'll be ample parking, meeting those requirements for sure. The property does meet all the acreage requirements. In your ordinance under section 506, the minimum acreage requirement is 15 acres. We have just over 40 acres here with this site, so we certainly meet that standard. The subject site is not in the 100-year floodplain, so we meet that requirement. And the layout and design does provide for the open space areas that are required, which is the 50-foot, buffer from the perimeter. And so we definitely meet that standard as well. Taking a look at the layout, you'll see that we're proposing all of the development to be situated on the east side of the site. There's a transmission line that kind of runs through the property north to south, and all the development will be positioned to the east of that. As Attorney Best stated, there's, the development will not be visible from anywhere, and all of the property along the perimeter is generally naturally wooded, so it'll be nestled in very nicely in with its surroundings. The road network consists of 6 roads. We did submit road names to the fire department with our revised submission, but on the plans we're still depicting them as roads A through F, just because if we start naming things, sometimes people get upset because it does have to meet E911 standards, and that's a very important process to go through. So we have Road A, which would come off of the existing paved area and come down and terminate here. That roadway is about 1,170 feet in length. And then we have Road B, which would come off of A in this location and sweep down around. This one would terminate in a T-style turnaround. That's the turnaround that the fire department has requested that we design the project to. You'll notice that those have been revised from our original submission because we did try to address all of the fire department's comments and concerns. Road B is about 1,450 feet in length. And then we have a series of, smaller roadways. We have, Road C that comes up again, terminates in a T-style turnaround. That's about 1,150 feet in length. Road D should be this roadway here. Runs kind of parallel to B and C. That would be about 720 feet in length. And then we have Road E, which is this smaller spur road, if you will, that heads off to the north, again terminating in a T-style turnaround, would be 175 feet in length. And then roadway F, this is this section here, would be about 380 feet in length. So in total, we have about 5,040 feet of roadway. All of the roads within the development are proposed to be 20 feet wide, hard surface, and that includes an improvement to Darlene Lane from Charles Bancroft Highway into the site, making sure that meets the minimum 20 feet wide standard. That was actually a condition of the zoning board approval as well. The roadway width being 20 feet is technically a waiver request because the subdivision regulations call out a minimum of 24 feet. But certainly, and we'd be happy to review that in more detail when you feel needed, Mr. Chairman. But we believe that the waiver is reasonable considering the use of the property. We meet all safety criteria, and I think the fire department's letter, their comments at least, do support that. The layout of this development has been designed to minimize impacts to any environmentally sensitive areas. What I mean by that is basically we've avoided all the jurisdictional wetland areas. We've utilized existing crossings where appropriate, and we've adhered to any of the setback requirements accordingly. The site has been designed to provide safe pedestrian and vehicular access. I mean, we've run templates for fire, trucks through the site with no issues. And then, some of the recreational components that Attorney Best touched on is, we are proposing a play area in this location here, just north of roadway A, a recreational field area, a common gazebo area, and then we show a nature trail that we are proposing really along the perimeter of the site. And people will utilize the roadways for walking. It'll be a nice community setting for sure. This project will require, a fair amount of permitting still that we have to secure. We have to finalize the septic approvals for the other 3 septic fields. We have to secure an alteration of terrain permit, for the land area impact with this project. We have designed the stormwater system, or the intent of the design of the stormwater system was to, certainly meet local and state standards. Through that, we're proposing that the stormwater for this project be basically entirely captured and conveyed to 3 stormwater management areas, utilizing portions of closed drainage, but primarily open drainage systems with this project. Those stormwater management areas are located here on the west side of roadway C, and then on both sides of roadway A as it approaches the jurisdictional wetland area, just so we can capture all of that runoff. We have received a updated review from the town engineer, LC Engineering. I had an opportunity to speak with Louis this afternoon. We went through all of the review comments. We have no issues with any of his recommendations. I think he seeks planning board feedback on a particular lighting comment, which I'll touch on here in a second, but I think his review was very thorough. It's certainly comments that we plan on addressing as we prepare a submission to the Alteration of Terrain Bureau, which we would normally do after our first public hearing. So we very much appreciate his time and the effort that went into there. As a professional engineer, I'm never opposed to somebody else looking at things. It always yields a better project in the end.
Lou, did you want to address your comments?
Perhaps you can let him finish first.
Okay,
and
that's
then-
fine. I didn't know if you wanted to add anything. All right, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sure. The other improvements for this project that we have detailed within the plan set consists of landscaping, lighting, and then just more details on the drainage infrastructure. The landscaping it really consists of a fair amount of street trees, and then we have a typical unit landscaping that's on our detail sheet, and that's actually one of the comments that Mr. Karen had, was just verifying, is that landscaping going to be part of the build? And it is. So we're going to clarify that within the notes, that the developer will be the one installing the landscaping to ensure that that work is done. It's not an option that a homeowner can choose not to do. It will be part of the build. So I think that those comments were certainly valid based on some of the notes. Pertaining to the lighting, I'm just going to turn to our lighting plan because it'll be easier to talk about. So the lighting plan that we're proposing essentially consists of light poles located at all intersections. So you'll see throughout the project, we're proposing a light pole at every intersection. Generally speaking, and at the end of the roads as appropriate. Generally speaking, we feel it's a good practice to have lit intersections when people are visiting a site or looking for somebody's home. You want to be able to see the street signs and so on. But also, it often provides the right balance in a residential setting. We don't want to have too much lighting, but we want to have enough light for it to be, certainly a safe neighborhood and easily navigated. I think Mr. Karen mentioned in his review letter, maybe a light pole should be considered in this location here between units, I believe it's 6 and 7. And I think it's primarily because this is a pretty long stretch between intersections, and there's a curve in the road. We certainly don't object to that if the board felt that an additional light, would be warranted in that location. And so we would just seek your feedback on that. I think the plan certainly meets any standards or requirements. But I can understand, that comment, and we have no objections to it. As it relates to, I guess, no objections, I mean, honestly, we had a chance to review for this evening's meeting any feedback that we've received since our second submission, which really addressed a lot of comments. It addressed comments from Mr. Minikara through the NRPC. It addressed our initial round of engineering comments. It addressed fire department comments, as well as some staff comments that we received. And we tried to be thorough with that response and provided a narrative form response letter, just so everybody had an understanding of the revisions we were making. And so, in summary, we did have an opportunity to review the updated engineering letter as well as the updated letter from NRPC, and we have no objections to any of the comments or recommendations. We look forward to hopefully securing a conditional approval on this project as soon as possible. With that said, we're really here tonight to try to answer any questions that the board may have. We think this is a really good project. It offers a lot of improvement to a site that was in distress, but also will provide a much needed, affordable housing component and in an appropriate location, in our opinion, which is, supported through the zoning variance. So, thank you very much for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So I wanted to quickly just go over what we're asking of you tonight, obviously. Acceptance is the first thing on the table. There is a need based on the zoning ordinance for the planning board to determine that this is a residential manufactured housing district, has to be established. And that may be sort of an implicit finding in what you do, but in the event that the file needs more paper, I did bring a letter to ask for that if you want it. There is the waiver for the street widths, which we would like to have you consider, and we can provide more details on the justification of that at the right time now or whenever you'd like to hear it. And then, conditional final approval. I know that the recommendation is to continue it based on getting a little bit more feedback on street names and a few things like that from around town. I would not be doing my job if I didn't always advocate for the quickest decision that we can to try to get to conditional final approval, because it makes such a difference for the applicant to be able to move forward and get the financial support they need for a project, to have some decisions in place. And to the extent there are some things that are, technical in nature, like the road names, whatever the fire department says they should be is what they should be. Those kinds of things. We would love to have that be a conditional final approval, and I'll let that go. Let that go at that.
All right, thank you. Lou, any comments?
I had a few. Most of my comments in my letter are, I think, simple engineering type things that they'll be able to wrap up. One of the bigger concerns I had, because it's so flat out there, it's about a 1% slope from the back of the lot to the front of the lot, over 1,400 feet. The grading between the units showed some spot elevations and flow lines where the drainage is supposed to go to open culverts. There are no catch basins on the site, it's all open culverts. And I asked for a whole bunch more spot elevations just to make sure that what their intent is will actually get constructed in the field. If there's more information, you're more likely to get the result you're looking for. So I asked for, and it could be a lot more, 2 or 3 times more. They had some on there, but probably could be some more. I'm noticing on here about the trail. There was nothing on the plans about a trail. Just to let you know.
On the colored one that you have here, it's the yellow dotted line.
I see.
Right.
I
And
just
it's
want
a-
to say there was nothing on the
Right.
submission that showed a trail.
And just to clarify, it's a nature trail, so it's not a constructed trail with a surface.
Okay.
It's picking a trail through the wood line that will be, a flag will be hung or demarcation on a tree. It's really just providing an additional recreational component without adding to disturbance. And that, you are correct, Mr. Karen, that is something that was an idea that was floated by our client just recently, that he would really like to see some kind of a nature trail, which I think is great. I think it's a great idea. It's another amenity that they want to provide, to their residents. I really appreciate the question being asked, because a trail can mean two things. We're going to grade and construct and, bring in materials, and that's not the intent. This is a, kind of a hiking nature trail that we would handpick throughout that area, where it's appropriate, with separation between homes and enjoying the, some of the natural woodland landscape around the property. And then, Mr. Karen and I did talk a lot about the spot grades. I think that comment is valid. It is a flat site. We have designed it at 1%, and we're happy to add a lot more spot grades. What's important for us, in a presentation like this, in this venue, is if everybody, if we get good feedback on the layout and we can proceed, then we can really, finalize these details and prepare a package that obviously the town engineer would ultimately have to sign off on, and we would be able to submit for state approval. So I think that comment's valid, and we look forward to addressing that.
Anything else?
I guess a couple other things. I did request a separate erosion control plan sheet. They have erosion control features on the grading plan, but if you look at it close enough, it kind of follows the proposed tree cut line. And the line for the erosion control disappears when the tree line shows up, because it's a heavier line. Plus, my experience is the first people on the site are going to be out there cutting trees down. And then after they cut the trees down, they stump it and pile a bunch of stumps up and decide what they're going to do with them. And then the dozers come in to scrape off the topsoil. So this is before you're doing any roads or anything else. And it would be, I think, a good idea just to have, this is what the erosion measures are, the construction entrance, which was really not shown on the plans where it should be located, and there are a couple of notes in two different locations that stress the fact that the erosion control measures need to be in place prior to moving dirt. So I strongly suggest that, just to have one sheet you can hand to the contractor and say, go put your silt fence up, because it does take a little bit of work to put that in, or silt socks, whatever you're going to end up using. There was also a mention of a traffic study, which, in Jay's letter, which I never saw, just to let you know that in case you asked me a question about it.
Forwarded to you. Thought you got it.
And there is actually a fourth basin of sorts on the site towards the east edge of the lot. It's a low area that I've asked them to develop it as a bio-remediation pond or a rain garden. It's a natural spot that just doesn't have an outlet. The water gets deep enough, it could flow out somewhere, and they modeled it in their drainage calculations. No, it's a strip behind, around the east property line, behind 4 or 5 of the lots.
I think it's right in this location here.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
About here to here. So you got water flowing this way, you got water flowing that way, and right in the middle is this low spot, which is okay. Again, what I asked for is plantings, because they weren't showing plantings. When you have these wet basins and bio or rain gardens, the plantings are important, and I didn't see any landscaping to address the plantings that deals with the water quality issues. Other than that, everything else I have in my letter, it's a long letter, but there's a lot of, I refer to as nickel dime stuff that sometimes gets overlooked, sometimes gets missed, but it can get cleaned up. No deal breakers there.
Okay. Thank you very much. Jay, do you have any comments?
Yeah, we had several comments when the plan was initially submitted. I do, commend the applicants. I think they went through great lengths to address all of my comments as well as engineering comments, fire department comments. So the response was really very comprehensive. At this point, I do think they meet the acceptance criteria. So the plan, I think, is certainly ready for acceptance if that's the will of the board. I did recommend continuance mainly because of the outstanding engineering items. There were several on Lou's list, as he's mentioned, and my sense is that it's important to see that those are addressed. But otherwise, I think it's ready for acceptance.
Okay. Does the board have any questions?
So regarding the lighting, you said you needed an extra light about between units 5 and 6, or where did you say the recommendation for the extra light was?
I believe it was between 6 and 7, which is about right here, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Somewhere in that area. I wasn't recommending it, but rather suggesting that the board take a look at it to see if you wanted to have an additional light in there, because I know the board's always sensitive about lighting. But all the intersections are lit, and then there's just one long stretch, the back road, that doesn't have any lights on it. And I thought to have one in there might be a good idea, but that's up to you.
Yeah, I think that on the straightaway, it's not as important as on the curve, as you said. So I'd say if we had a light close to the curve, that would be the best decision.
There is one a couple of 100 feet away by roadway D.
At the intersection?
At the intersection.
Do you
There
think
is one
that'll be
there.
enough to kind of illuminate that curve, at least?
I mean, are you asking me, sir?
Yeah.
So my opinion is lights generally give you direction, right? So it's not going to light up this intersection like a parking lot, but
Yeah.
you're going to see.
You'll see it, and
that
it won't be a
that there's
hazard.
a curve coming.
Okay.
In my opinion. Now, I think if you're coming from this direction, that may not be the same, situation. You're gonna be relying on your headlights because you're not gonna see, that light in the distance. And that might be what, Mr. Karen was referring to, that, a light in this location, just because of the sheer length and separation between the two, might not be a bad idea. We would be happy to put another light in if that's the census of the board. It's absolutely not an issue. I don't think that creates an acceptance issue. I think our design, meets all the criteria from an acceptance standpoint, but we appreciate the dialogue and direction, so.
Anybody else? Kim?
Just, I only saw one sheet on the landscaping. Can you describe what will happen in those 55 units roughly? The only reason I bring that up is it's not really a zoning issue, but it's more our master plan to kind of have a break up if we see a lot of continuous roofs, in a row. Just want to see what that plan was. You need the sheet? I'm sure you know it more than I do here.
Yeah, I'm just turning to the sheet. Thank you. So we have the landscaping plan.
Sheet 20.
And then we also have a typical residential unit landscaping detail
Okay, let me scroll.
on sheet 20. And this is actually a detail that Mr. Karen wants us to clarify some notes on, because he wanted to make sure that this landscaping in some fashion is going to be installed during construction, which I think is a valid point. Because otherwise, if you leave it up to a homeowner, you may not get that. And the intent is for this to be part of the plan. We do leave some wiggle room in there as far as species, because what's available is always an issue depending on the time of year. But generally speaking, that's going to be the plan for each unit. So you'll have the street trees, and then you'll have that in front of each unit, which I think will be a really nice plan myself. It'll far exceed any requirements, I think in your regulations, and should be consistent with, master planning, if I had to
Yep.
guess.
It breaks it up, so we won't just see a bunch of roofs, like that, going down the road. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I had a couple of
Okay, yeah,
things.
go ahead.
One of the things in our site plan regulations is to try to avoid continuous flat roofs for longer than 50 feet. I think the photos that you submitted, that some of those houses had like a porch to it.
Yep, so we
I just
have-
wanted to see, is that,
So this is a typical unit which may have, like a deck with a porch off the front. And I guess one of the comments from, and I'm just looking for clarification here a little bit. I don't think we fall under the site plan review. I think we fall under the subdivision review, and that was one of our,
okay.
It's mischaracterized on the agenda, but it's subdivision regulations.
Oh, I see.
and
Okay.
so I want to answer your question, is that there's going to be different, architectural elements, with each of these projects. There's this one, the garage might be set back on, on some of the units where instead of stepping forward, it steps back. That'll be
Sure.
a different element. And then certainly you might have, kind of what, and I'm not an architect, so I'm probably going to use the wrong terminology, but kind of like a dormer that goes over, covers a deck. You may not have that. It may just have the deck with the railings, and things. There'll be some diversity throughout.
Sure, okay.
But, we're not pinpointing, all of those details, because every prospective buyer will have some options as it relates to, house designs and so on.
Okay, so it'll be up to the buyer
It could
for the
be,
design
yeah.
of the house.
It
Okay.
very much is, the buyer actually owns the unit
House
itself
itself,
and is just
right.
renting the lot. So they may decide that they want a bigger one or a smaller one or a different model or a different manufacturer, and
Okay.
so there's some variability.
Question, is it reasonable to assume that these will all be double wides?
The goal was to design them all for double wides, so I suspect that that they'll all be double wides, through here. Up on this tail end of roadway C, where the units are kind of I guess going lengthwise. I mean, if there was any single wides that went in here, and I'm not sure they'll allow that, I think they really want to create double, like this as a double wide, they would likely go here. I'm just saying if that ever
Okay.
did happen. But we will have designed it for a larger building, larger impervious cover, to make sure that we fall within that envelope, worst case.
Okay.
And is it true that a double wide typically has a peak roof rather than flat?
It is. Even the single wides today are peaked roof, so.
Are they? Okay.
Oh,
Just
that's
a-
nice.
Help Kate with her question.
Yeah.
The
Well, I
ones
just,
that are turned sideways to the end will have like a farmer's porch on that streetscape view. I don't know, one of the pictures that we had, I think, was turned in that direction.
Yeah, it could have, this one's a little pixely because I took a smaller image and made it large, but this shows an option for, some of those other units that could be, lengthwise.
okay.
So
Yep.
this would be facing the road, and then you'd have a driveway on the, kind of on the side.
Okay, great. Yeah, I understand if it's up to the owner. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like, oh, these really nice pretty ones are the first four, and then the rest, are just, right?
Even though it is up to the owners, there will be standards, and there's, if somebody comes and they say they want to do something that just doesn't fit within the neighborhood or just doesn't look good, there's going to be certain level community standards that they're going to be held to, and,
Okay, great.
Mr. Blackwell, who is our building inspector and zoning enforcement officer, is here this evening. Mr. Blackwell, do you have any comments?
Yes, in particular with that whole discussion. The plans are showing the double-wide units to be basically the depth of the buildable area. Not accounting for front stairs and landing, not accounting for any back stairs and landing, decks, porches. So any addition of stairs, which we obviously would have to have, would require a variance for a double wide. So every double wide on the majority of lots is gonna have front stairs, back stairs, in a setback.
I think it's an interesting question. Chad may have a technical answer for it, but I think it also is affected by the idea that although this is treated as a subdivision in terms of the regulations as a mobile home park, it truly isn't a subdivided lot. These aren't lots of record that are conveyable or taxable separately and all of that. So the lot lines are somewhat of a planning tool that we use to understand how the lot will lay out. I don't know that you're confined necessarily to the same setbacks, but if it's the subdivision regulation, I guess it must be.
Well, this is under 505, under the manufactured housing parks. Is where it says 30 feet from the front lot line and 20 feet from rear and side.
Okay, perfect.
That's what it looks like you have.
Right, so we can, understanding that the stairways would be considered a structure, in some communities, the stairs are not meeting the definition of a structure, we could just modify that front lot line to, because there's no minimum standard for like necessarily the right-of-way width for the roadway. We could modify that front line and make that work. And I will say, this is the absolute largest double wide. So there can be a variation in the size of the double wides that would address that as well. We always try to show the largest possible structure on a plan, just to make sure we're being as conservative as possible with our design. So that's something we'll be happy to look at, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
Anything you want to add to that, Mr. Blackwell?
No, we'll take a better look at it.
Okay.
Along the line, you're talking about the footprint of this. That affects sheds, I'm assuming, right? A lot of people might want a shed here, right? So what does that do to this equation if people want a shed? Not a lot of room? Or does it have, every individual has to be looked at?
I mean, I'll defer to the building inspector, but I would imagine that if it is of sufficient size, it would meet setback requirements. But I would defer to Jeff on that.
So we don't know if we have setbacks or not, based on what you're saying for definition, or
Well, I think there's, and I would have to review that to speak to it,
505
appropriately, but I think normally there's if you're under a certain square footage for a shed, does it have to apply to the setbacks? And then, honestly, this client,
Yeah, right, but even up to 200 square feet is, up to 10, still needs to be 10 feet from property line, or lot line, or.
right, but we're showing 20 and 30, so there's room there to do a shed if in fact that's something that they want to permit.
Yep. It is something that park owners each design into their rules, whether they'll allow sheds and what the process is to get them approved. And obviously, if they need a building permit, they'd have to get some. I can say that in the existing park, there's probably 6 sheds in the 44 units. So it's not something every single lot would typically do. But I think that they have to fit them in their building space. And if it doesn't pass muster with getting permitted, then they can't have their shed.
And these units primarily have garages too, so there is some storage component there.
Mike?
Yes, Luke.
You're showing a recreational field on here. Is that any kind of a formal field that's sitting on top of the septic system?
Yeah, so the septic system, as you know, would be, you don't plant trees or anything like that on it, and so similar to that nature trail, they wanted to provide an area where people, kids within the park could go and play catch or toss a frisbee, and so they're going to delineate that area as a recreational area. And so that particular septic system is elevated about 4 feet, so just a little bit higher than this table, and the grades feather out on the perimeter. So it's, honestly, most of the soccer fields that we design and approach have a similar feeling, and so it will be an open area that will be allowed for recreation. I think it's good planning, and it's something that they want to provide as an amenity.
But not a, regulation soccer field or baseball field with any structures or fixtures or dugouts or
Correct.
any of those kinds of things.
Correct. It's just
One in the back might be big enough for a soccer field.
Could be.
True.
Let's see.
Is that going to be lit, the recreation area?
No. Yeah, it's
Was there like a playground or anything planned, or is it just the fields?
out in front of that. We are proposing that there would be a playground closer to the front side here.
Okay,
Yeah, there's a player.
And that would be, kind of a fenced-in area.
okay. But you're not planning to have a light on that?
We're currently not proposing to have a light there, no. I think that ideally, when after hours, kids will go home and people will be able to have a nice, enjoy their unit. and
Quiet neighborhood.
Quiet
yeah.
neighborhood, yeah.
Okay.
There's one pretty close by at that intersection that wasn't there.
I mean, there is a light here. Yeah, I mean, they could push some hours maybe, of play if they wanted to. But we were not proposing a light specifically for
Okay.
that.
I wasn't sure if you might want to consider it for security, because I know that like our local playground sometimes has security issues, like damage happen to it because it's not visible from the road. And right now it's 4 o'clock and getting dark, and I try to get my kids outside as much as possible, right? But there's only so much time after school before the sun goes down, so
Okay.
maybe park hours with a light might be considered, but that's not really our purview anyway.
Has the police department had an opportunity to weigh in on the project in terms of safety concerns or?
I believe it was copied to them, but we can double check.
Okay, just something for their.
Yep.
Okay. Does the board have any further questions before I open it up to public comment?
I wanted to see, would you be open to a site walk if the board wanted to?
Well, I was gonna bring it up, but it's certainly something that I guess we do, we can certainly ask the applicant if they're willing to do that. Would anybody be in objection to a site walk of the property? Usually, I mean, site walks I think are helpful to the planning board. I mean, as much as everyone loves maps and plans and so forth, actually seeing something visually can be a benefit, certainly, to making, recommendations and consideration of things.
I think from the applicant standpoint, there's no objection to the concept of the site walk, as long as we can try to get it done as quickly as possible between meetings and try not to delay the project with it. Also, being on a planning board, I recognize that site walks in December to January are probably not that pleasant, but
Well,
We just did one.
We just did one, yeah, and I know it wasn't exactly,
There were a lot of thorns.
but we wouldn't, be doing our job if we didn't ask, and certainly, it's certainly the applicant's purview, so.
If we
Mr.
stick-
Chairman, you also just mentioned taking public comment, but and not to tell you how to order your meeting, but haven't accepted the application yet.
True, but we normally, we usually I do sometimes allow just the public to comment, and then I will bring it back to the acceptance, so.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't want to tell you how to run your meeting.
No, I understand. It's just the way that we usually do things here, so just as a courtesy, so.
And if you want to stay on the sidewalk topic,
Yeah, let's
probably
do that
the ideal dates, if we want to do a Saturday, I know we have done a Sunday, but we'd probably be looking realistically at the 7th or the 14th.
Okay. 7th is a Saturday, 14th is Saturday. Does any date work for you folks, the applicant, for those two dates? Is that something that's,
I mean, we're gonna make whatever date work. I think we would prefer the 7th, just to try to make sure we get it done as soon as possible.
all right, and does the board have any objection to that, or not being able to come, or?
I believe I can do the 7th
So,
morning.
just talk through or think through when the next meeting is and notice requirements that you may need to do to have a site walk and whatever, make sure it all fits in. But Other than that, I mean, the 7th is on. Your next meeting is the 18th of January, is that right?
The 17th of January
17th.
would be the next
It's a Tuesday.
available meeting.
I keep looking at that calendar.
So the 7th would be a little bit further in advance and probably a better time to do it rather than just a little short bit before your meeting.
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, I can certainly do the 7th if everyone else is good with it. All right, so what
The
time,
morning of the 7th.
you want to do the morning?
Or, actually, no, I couldn't do the afternoon.
So, morning.
Like a
Yep.
10 a.m., does that
10
work?
a.m.,
10
does
would
10
work.
a.m. work?
Yes, 10 would work for me.
As long as it works for you guys.
10 a.m. on the 7th?
Okay, all right, 10 a.m. on the 7th then. Will be the site walk. Olson's. Okay.
I would suggest at the site walk, when you come in off of the road and you go towards the back, right about where those power lines is, there's a building and an area to park, and it's probably a good gathering place for everybody to come together.
All right, very good. Lou, did you have something?
Yeah, when the whole project was proposed to me and even identified as a site plan, I always deal site plans completely different from the standpoint of roads in circulation and things like that compared to a subdivision. I did not review the roads here as subdivision roads. They're going to be privately owned. So just to let you know that if this were a public road system, probably some of these horizontal curves wouldn't meet the ASHTO specs, because you do have a whole nice table in the subdivision regulations that require certain design standards for a public road. That I didn't look at it that way because my understanding was it was site plan, so my apologies on that one, I guess. But as far as road width, there are 2-foot shoulders proposed. And in my history, both with Litchfield as well as many other communities, the magic number for widths from fire departments that I've heard, the minimum would be 18 feet, generally speaking. 20 feet with 2-foot shoulder on each side, as long as it's cleared from snow, should be more than adequate, but the fire department would have the final say on road widths like that.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'm going to open it up to public comment. Is there any members of the public that wish to comment on this project this evening? Okay. All right. Seeing none, I will close public input, and I'll bring it back to the board. So tonight, the applicant is requesting an or looking for an acceptance for completeness of the plan. I'm not inclined to do any waivers this evening, but I will go over. Jay, do we have all the fee? Well, maybe I should ask Kim. Maybe I should ask you, Kim Kleiner. I know Joan isn't here. Do we have all fees paid and have all abutters for this project been notified? Do you know off the top of your head?
I would have to check.
Okay.
I
Usually,
would say the answer is yes.
the answer is yes. Okay. All right. Normally, that's a part of our acceptance for completeness, because we just want to make sure that everybody has received notice of this project and that all fees have been paid.
That package that I gave you actually has copies of the checks and the abutters list in it, and I don't know that that necessarily closes the loop that the envelopes actually went out the door, but I think
Okay.
we did our part as best
right.
we could.
Good, perfect. Okay, great, awesome. I have certainly, this is usually a question that goes along with, but maybe I'll, is there any regional impact to this project?
It's already been
Yeah,
determined,
we
Mr. Chairman.
determined that there was, and Hudson was notified.
Oh, Hudson was notified, and there is, okay, so that has been cleared. And Jay, you are comfortable that we have received all of the materials from the applicant, the application, which I have the plan set, and everything is in order?
Yes.
Okay. And I did receive, we also received from the applicant the, looks like a rental agreement, a fiduciary deed with the consent of beneficiaries and consent of the landowners. We have that as record. Let's see. And we have the applicant's waiver request. And we do have comments from the fire department. And that had been changed to a subdivision from a site plan. That was done. Let's see, anything else? We have the emails, copies provided. So it looks like pretty much we have everything that we need and all adjustments been made. Okay. Does the board have any further questions before we take a vote tonight? Well, I didn't, all right, Mr. Blackwell.
I'm not sure if it was addressed or not, but one of the conditions from one of the variances
Yep,
was for workforce housing.
that is,
Project was presented.
yep, correct. And that does appear to be on this plan.
Yeah, it is noted on the
yeah.
plans.
Okay.
It is noted.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yep, got it. Okay. So I take that all fees have been paid, we have all the submissions, and all butters have been notified. At this time, I'm going to entertain a motion for acceptance for completeness of the application.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of the application for completeness for this project, Olson's, actually, let's do this the
Litchfield
right way.
Estates.
Olson's Mobile Home Park, map 1, lot 32, 13 Charles Bancroft Highway. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Anybody abstained? All right, motion for acceptance for completeness passes 4-0-0. Okay. So we have scheduled a site walk for January 7th. When are we going to be meeting again?
January 17th.
January 17th. So I think what I would like to see, because I don't know, we really didn't touch on it a lot, but maybe for next time, is I would like to have a discussion about traffic. And I know that there was a traffic memo or
It's a traffic
report that was submitted, but maybe go over that a little bit and talk about that for next time. Also, obviously, you've heard tonight many comments from Mr. Karen, so hopefully we can have you address those. If there's any issues with the building inspector, has any issues, maybe you can address those as well. And if Jay has anything at that, present time, then we can address that as well next time. I mean, you've done a good job presentation about the, concerning the stormwater management. Maybe a couple more questions. We don't have a full board here tonight, so I'll give them an opportunity at least to comment on that, since they weren't here this evening. And also on the septic plan as well. And we will go to the waiver request for next time. We'll definitely do a vote on that. Just give the other members of the board an opportunity to review that as well. So with that said,
Has conservation seen this?
that's a good question. Have you been before the Conservation Commission at all? Have they commented on this project? Do you know?
Just wondering if we should ask for comment. or
We haven't been in
It's
front of
not
the
a re-
Conservation
Not
Commission.
a requirement that you have to.
And we're not proposing any wetland impacts or buffer impacts, so I think it's not, to our knowledge, it hasn't been requested or required.
I could certainly forward it to them.
I mean, certainly, yeah. I mean, we can certainly do that. If you're interested and you do want to do that, you know, it might be just a courtesy. I mean, they may have suggestions or something, you know. Usually the Conservation Commission is pretty good. I mean, they do make recommendations to the zoning board, so.
What's their schedule look like? And I hate to keep harping back to the same point, but I just want to make sure that we're able to get usefully before you guys in January again.
So the Conservation Commission meets in Litchfield on the first Thursday of every month. So their next meeting won't be till January 5th. January 5th. So,
How much notice do they need before a meeting?
I'll get in touch with them.
yeah, unfortunately, Joan McKibben, who's our planning board administrator, she's on the board, and unfortunately, she's not here tonight, so we're kind of.
It's not a formal application to
It
them,
isn't,
so-
yeah. I mean, they're an advisory board. They don't have any regulatory authority necessarily, but they do a pretty good job of making recommendations and things like that. If that's something that you want to certainly present to them, you're welcome to do so.
I know that, I'm sorry, I keep speaking when you're.
Well, I was just curious about the trail, if it can you have a trail in that buffer? You know, it's the permanent buffer.
You can, because it's not a constructed trail, so it's no
Okay.
different than a site walk. We're not building, you know, a trail or it's not a formal impact.
Construction or development, so the development is what you're not allowed to have within the buffer.
Okay. All right.
I know that we're not, going to take up the question of the waiver request, and I don't have any particular concerns about putting that off for next time, except to say that if anyone is already feeling like that's going to be a problem, or that the road widths are going to be a big discussion, it would be helpful to know that now so that we could plan around it. And I know that it's not official or binding, but is there a consensus that the 20-foot road widths are going to be okay, or an issue, or?
I'd say as long as fire is okay with it.
Right, and as I said, we don't have a full board here tonight, so I want to at least give them an opportunity to review that before we make a final decision on that, so.
Understood.
So I think that'll be, I mean, I don't see any issue, personally. I can't speak for the board.
Yeah, that's it.
But-
That's personally if for each of the members that are here. I also picked up on Mr. Mankara's mention that sort of the evolution of roadways and making them narrow so you have less impervious surface, and the traffic slowing is really a big deal. And a lot of towns are narrowing their public roadways to 20 feet or even narrower. So.
And I think that's probably a good discussion to have along with doing the traffic and stuff, so we'll definitely address that. We can address that next time. Absolutely. Okay. Also, too, if we can get it's just a technical thing, but if we can get a copy of the decision from the zoning board, just for our file, so we have it on.
Thought it was in here, but if not, I'll make
I
sure.
didn't
that-
see it. If it's
You-
there,
you
I
could be right.
apologize, but I did not
Might
see
be
it.
just in mine, but we'll make sure.
Just so that we have it for our.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay, great. Anything else from the board this evening?
Do you want a copy of it now, or?
Sure, if you want, if you have it, we
Yeah.
can certainly scan
If
it.
you could
So you can
email
control
it,
it
it'd be
right
easier,
now?
then I can get it to everybody. I think I have it, but. without
Thank you
check.
very much. I appreciate it. Okay. So we'll obviously have to, so we're going to vote to continue this to January?
I think you've accepted it.
Accepted
Open
it,
the public
so-
hearing and then continue it to January 17th.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to continue this matter to January 17th. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Do I have any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 4-0-0. All right, well, we'll see you on the 7th, and our regular meeting will begin, for this project, will be on the 17th of January.
Can I just ask a question, Mr. Chairman? And I'm sorry I didn't do this earlier. For the site walk?
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular that the board wants to see? As far as, like, we don't have, the roadway laid out. I mean, we can navigate everybody and tell you where we are and give you some reference points and stuff on site.
I will tell you from the last site walk we did, I know that the engineer did go out beforehand and did some staking
Logging.
of areas to show where where the stormwater was, this is where the road is gonna be, maybe you can do that, and, just so that we have an idea.
And if you have any of those septic systems flagged, that would be great.
Perfect, yep.
The big ones, yeah, done.
Get an idea.
That's a good landmark, yeah.
If what would be help, I drove on the site a month or so ago, and what helped me was the existing dirt roads that are on the site. If somehow you could get like maybe a plan like this
Sidewalk
that
worksheet.
showed, because they're a good point of reference.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely, we can do that.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming in this evening, and we look forward to continuing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate all of your feedback and the time that you put into listening to the presentation.
Thank you.
The 7th. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
See you next week.
Okay. So, moving on, the next item this evening is committee reports. Any reports from any committees? Kim?
I don't have any real reports other than to say tomorrow evening at 7 is the quarterly NRPC meeting at 30 Temple Street in Nashua.
Okay.
And the next Board of Selectmen meeting is January 9th on a Monday at 6:30 PM here at the Town Hall.
Folks, thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate, Merry Christmas to all of you. But I just, if you're going to have conversations, we're going to continue the meeting. We just ask that you step outside. I'm sorry, just because of the noise. Thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry. Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry, Kim. Are you all
Want me to
set?
repeat that, or
Well, I don't know if anybody at home heard it, but,
I'll say it again?
Talking into the microphone.
yeah, they probably did, but I know there was a lot of noise. I apologize.
NRPC's meeting tomorrow, 7 o'clock.
Okay.
30 Temple Street in Nashua.
Okay. Great. The Conservation Commission will meet on the 5th of January. The Lower Merrimack Local River Advisory Committee Board has any planned meetings yet, but we'll certainly keep everybody informed of that. And the capital improvement plan was presented to the Board of Selectmen on December 12th, and that plan has been submitted, so it is in the hands of the Board of Selectmen. And that's all I have on that. Kate?
Warrant articles were presented to the budget committee at the last meeting, and though we haven't voted on them yet, and then the next meeting won't be until next year.
Okay, very good. Approval of the December 6, 2022 minutes. Did anyone have an opportunity to take a look at those? Have any questions or concerns?
I do. I thought about it, but I think I'm gonna put them
Okay,
in.
well,
I was gonna
Don't
let it
hold back.
slide, but I don't think I can. It's not that it's a big issue, but I think on, what did I write down? Section 4, let me go into that. I think it's on page 4, section G. We can put them in two different places. Let me go down to that. Let me open up the document. Page 4. When the school district was commenting in section G, everything there is fine. I did ask a question, though, about the total price of the school with the 20 years of financing was really $56 million. And then Christina clarified how she got the number down to 32 million. But I just want that on the record, that it's 52 million, but after grants and funding, they expect it to be 32 million.
okay. All right.
So she is accurate, but I just want to have, want people to understand that piece.
thank you. Anybody have anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. December
moved.
6th, okay. I have a motion by Kate. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Kim. Any further discussion? All right, all those in approval of the minutes of December 6, 2022, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstained?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 301. Okay, thank you. All right, any other business this evening? Jay, do you have anything that you'd like to?
I do not.
Okay. Kim, do you have anything?
I do not.
Kate?
Do we have anything on Albuquerque?
No, disappointingly. I know that they're supposed to be working on it, but
Okay,
no.
I'll keep asking.
Please, me too. I will keep asking.
Okay. All right. Sam, do you have anything? No?
Nope.
Okay. All right. And I do not have anything. So our next meeting is Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023. What are we doing for that meeting? Are we doing a workshop? Is that what the plan was?
We're doing Thoreau and zoning amendments.
Okay. So Thoreau and zoning amendments. Okay.
And then, so is the workshop the 17th? Or,
No, it's
or
not.
the, multi-use? When did we say that? It was either the 3rd or the 17th.
That was the
I just can't remember which one.
I can't remember. We're gonna have to look back because we wound up, we've continued Olson's,
Right.
and we've got a second public hearing on zoning,
Okay,
so we might have to push off the workshop.
okay.
All right.
That is understandable.
Okay.
Got people asking.
So I guess I don't have anything else for this evening. So I guess I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So me?
And do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Do I have discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 400. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we will see you in the new year.
Wow.
Wow, yeah.